Hey everybody, um, it's me again. I'm still at my friend's house, although I'll be in Portland by the time you guys are likely watching this. This is our Wednesday lecture. We're going to talk about contrast. I'm going to revisit some stuff in Illustrator because I didn't like some of the ways I handled the last lecture and have a few things to add to it. And we're going to go over the assignment that's assigned today that will be critiqued on Friday. Again, Thomas is going to be there. He's going to proctor your quiz. You'll have a quiz at the beginning of class. You'll have to show all the steps in this quiz, save it as an Illustrator file to your shared drive, and then don't manipulate it after the time of the quiz. That's how I know that you were able to do it in the time allotted. All right, let's get to it, shall we? Let's start with talking about contrast. The C in the crap equation. Okay, contrast is a very diverse principle in design, and there's no surprise that it's saved for last. It's one of the ones that's the most versatile, that can make your stuff look the most interesting. It can create focus, it can take away focus. It's important to learn, and there are subtle ways to apply it, and there are ways that you can apply it that you can hit people over the head with it. Okay, so I'll give you a few seconds to look at this image and to try to self-identify all the different types of contrasts that are happening in it. Okay, well, you have big text, you have small text, you have text that's close to other text that's far away, you have text that's spread out, text that's close together. You have extremely different types of fonts. You have different colors. You have differing alignments, bringing alignment into this. Different types of proximities. So you can actually use the other principles with contrast in a straightforward manner. Again, it's not knowing any one principle by itself, but knowing how all of them work together. Okay, so which one is easier to see, A or B? Well, it's obviously B, but the lesson here isn't that you should always do B. It's if you want something to blend in, you should do A. And if you want something to stand out, you should do B. This is a slide that I added in from Thomas's original slides. This is a high contrast, kind of hit you over the head version. It's very striking. It's very stark. It's that way because of how dramatic the show Mad Men is. It also does something else that's really interesting that we'll talk a little bit more about when we do logos, but it uses the background to help fill in some of the detail. This is often referred to as figure ground in design, but you can tell this is a room just because of this arc here, but the arc is just the background color. There's no actual detail drawn in there, and kind of some similar stuff going on the other side. And this line is obviously the wall in between them. This kind of minimalist design, ever since flat design has been popular, this kind of minimalist flat design where you use the background, like you don't need to see Don Draper's face to know that that's Don Draper. You don't have to have all those details. You can just have the black background in the silhouette of his face and people will know what the rest of the details are. It makes for very interesting design and it makes for very interesting logos. Okay, so not all contrast is hit you over the head contrast. In this title for To Kill a Mockingbird, the eye is over on its side like it has been killed. And so it's a very good way to represent one of the meanings that they're trying to portray in the title, yet it's not extremely different. There's only one minor change. It's on its side. And so contrast can be applied subtly. Now, contrast can be applied subtly, but it needs to be recognizable. Whatever change you're needing needs to be intentional to the point where you can tell you're trying to do it. Okay, spent a lot of time talking about flat design. Well, here's an example of dimensionality creating contrast. So this is a very, this orange just feels like it pops out of the box because there's so much shading and lighting and reflection that gives it dimensionality, which is different from the flat design that's on the rest of the box. Also, having a straw stuck straight in an orange, I mean, that's a contrasting imagery to what we're used to with oranges. You know, we juice them, and then we get the juice. Juice them, and then we get the juice. All right. Here's this poster again. Yes, it does a good job of doing repetition and contrast. The contrast is that that the quoted parts stand out from the narrated parts, which is the exact same thing that I said before. So it's both repetition in the fact that all the narrated parts are the same, the quoted parts are the same, but it's contrast in the fact that the quoted parts and the narrated parts are extremely different from each other. Okay, She Refused. So this is a commentary on Rosa Parks, and the R is backwards, representing her stubbornness and her refusal to back down. And so the R is backwards, which is very, again, it's a subtle contrast. One thing is definitely out of place in this, and it betrays meaning about the message that you're trying to send. So contrast can be used to pull your eyes across the line that you're reading. This is a good example of that with the New York Times. Okay, the next two posters are really great. This is the first one. So if you haven't seen the movie Inception, basically they're trying to change somebody's memory by going into a dream of a dream of a dream of a person to affect them in such a deep level in their consciousness that it reverberates out into the actual world. And so you can actually see the plot of the movie in these circles. You know, the outer dream where everything is kind of nice and it's easy going, it's easy to jump into that dream, and then it starts to get darker and harder as they go through, and the gray is kind of the point of no return. Gray is a muddled color, and so it's not very well defined. And so a great example of a very minimalist flat poster telling the story of the movie through design. Notice the strong alignment. Okay. And I gotta say, I like this poster even better than the last poster. Let's get some of this stuff out of the way so we can really see it. So this is Little Red Riding Hood. So green and red are good contrasting colors. And so, and they don't, there's not even that much detail with the hood, and you know it's Little Red Riding Hood. And then the only other things that stand out besides the title are the trees, and there's very little detail in the trees, yet you can tell it's a woods, just with a little bit of shading and a little bit of detail they put in. And finally, there's the wolf. And if you can't see the wolf, look a little closer. But the wolf, you can't see all of them, you can just see his claws, and that's because he's mischievous and he's hiding. And so it's a very effective design that tells the story pretty well of Little Red Riding Hood. Okay, so this is just an example. If you only want someone to read one line from a paragraph, you want to make it bold. Like if there's something in that paragraph they absolutely need to read, you should make it bold, and their eyes will be drawn right to it. And people that scan pages, their eyes will be forced to attach to that. Valkyrie, I'll blow this up a little bit. This was another movie about Adolf Hitler. And so the contrasting thing on it, I mean, there's blacks and whites, which is good because, you know, it's an older story. It's a story from the time of black and white movies and television. And so the red definitely stands out on 2 levels. And we instantly associate a red dot on somebody's head with intent to kill them now. That's just a symbol. Those 2 things together, that's what it means. And so you don't have to do much to display that intention in the design. Okay, here's another one of these comic book style designs, except I would actually say that this one is more clever than the last. It uses kind of the Jetsons motif, which is making something look nostalgically futuristic. And so it's nostalgic because it's a faded color and it's kind of on that paper. It has that paper texture in the background, but it's futuristic because it gives you a view of technology and fonts that are slanting forward and that are sharp, and it's kind of people's hopes for the future. The reason why it's great is because it's talking about something that the company believes is futuristic now, which is Skype, and the fact that they're progressive. And so there's kind of a double play there. And so there's almost 3 levels of contrasting intention going on in this ad. Okay, and that's the last one from contrast. I guess there's one more point I'd like to make about contrast, is that contrast, when you use a lot of black and white contrast on a page, and you have really thick contrast, it really hits people over the head. But because so much advertising uses that kind of look and feel, it actually has become kind of cheapened. So you have to be careful about how you use such stark contrasts. I'm talking like this level of contrast. This is tasteful because it matches the message and it's not a sales ad. But if you want to be, you know, use a level of contrast that's sophisticated, you know, you would do something more like this. So just be aware of that when you're using contrast. Okay. Woo! Let's talk about Illustrator a little bit. Okay. So I showed you guys the pen tool, but I didn't show you the pencil tool and some of the things that relate to that and some of the different ways that you can join objects together. And so I wanted to do that. Again, we have our puzzle piece, and I'm going to go to the pencil tool. And I'm going to do a really poor job because I'm not taking my time. You guys can be more careful with yours. And I'm going to make my puzzle line. And then let's see how well I did. I'm going to hide it. Oh, it's not a very good puzzle piece. I'm not even sure what that looks like. Okay, so I've drawn my puzzle. I didn't quite get to the point where the shape is together again. And so I'm going to try to use the join tool. The join tool is very persnickety. You have to be close, or your lines have to be overlapping. So I was close enough there. So I was able to join them to each other and now make this a closed object that I could color in. Another way to do that, so if you have 2 objects and you use your direct selection tool, and I'm going to hold down shift, and so I have the end points of each one, you can right click and you can choose join. So you can do that under a number of circumstances, which is also good. If you're drawing something with a pencil, you get a lot of kind of not very smooth lines. And of course you can adjust. I didn't show you any of the adjustments, but when you're using the pencil tool, you can actually kind of adjust what you're doing with your strokes. But anyway, so there's another tool. There's the smooth tool. And so the smooth tool just helps you work out some of those bumps to varying degrees. You know what? This isn't doing anything because I have another object selected. I should know better. Oh, down here. Smooth tool. There you go. Just slowly smoothing things out. So when you're doing your fruit, for example, it's not good on corners, by the way. It's only good on waviness. It does weird things when you try to hit corners. You would think it wouldn't. Oh, that worked the way I intended it to. That's nice. So did that. Okay. So you can basically use that to kind of, other than like just going for the handlebars and making very minute adjustments, you can use the smooth tool to give yourself a more real hand drawn effect, like somebody that really had a steady hand. If you want to, you can use the gradient tool to try to give dimension to your fruit. It might be better to do what some of the other students did and actually draw in reflections and stuff like that. But it's something that you could try. The path erase tool, I didn't show you guys, but you can basically, you can open up a path that you had once closed. And so here's the crazy thing about this. I want to join this again, but they're probably too far apart now. I'll try it. Hey, it worked. Thank goodness for technology. Okay, so there are just a few more things with Illustrator. Practice to kind of figure out how, it takes a lot of practice to kind of figure out how the handlebars affect the different shapes that you can do with things. You can completely flip them around, make a figure 8. A lot of times, in order to have a sharp point and to have a rounded point, you have to get rid of one of the handlebars, which I showed you guys the last time. You can use the anchor point. And so I have an inside curve there, but I still have a sharp point because I got rid of one of the anchors, so I only have one left out of the 2. It'll always draw with 2 by default. But if you know what you're doing, you can go back and correct afterwards. Okay, so there's a little Illustrator lesson. Let's talk about the assignment. So if you go back to the instructions, assignment 2B, using the information from chapter 4 in the non-designer's book, produce an invitation in Illustrator for something on a vertical letter-sized sheet. So unlike the last one, which was portrait, which was landscape, this one's going to be portrait. It's going to be taller. Make sure it's very obviously shows repetition as defined in the textbook. Save both an Illustrator file on your shared Google Drive and as a PDF with the title Assignment 2B. You know, there's one real quick I wanted to show you something in Illustrator. You probably figured this out, but like in the quiz when it said to group something, say you want these 2 lines to be grouped together, you can hold down Shift and you can right click and you can hit group. And now you can affect them as one grouping and move them around. Or what have you. Anyway, that was just a real quick thing. Everybody hopefully knows that by now. Okay. So again, there's a link up here to get to the Learning Resources website. And if you go down, you can look at the invitations. Some of these are pretty good. Most of them are pretty good. And again, at this point, you need to be able to illustrate all 4 principles in CRAP. So contrast, there's obviously some good contrast here. There's some alignment in certain places, especially with the actual lines. Proximity, there's different groupings of things. I think that's all 4. Did I hit all 4? You tell me. Okay, so, repetition is the one I forgot. But, okay, so this one is really good. It has a strong line here. You could almost, the only thing that doesn't seem to make sense is the alignment of this piece here in the center. It has very good contrast because this image is big and it's round, has nice rounded curves, and everything else is straight. It also has good contrast with a nice big title up here. Good contrast between what they're talking about and what the actual details are with the 2 colors. Repetition. So you have some things that are indented, some that are straight up. Let's go on. Valentine's Day party. Nathan's graduation party. Me, oh, that's really nice. If you guys don't want to do a full 8.5 by 11 size for your invitation, you want to use some more creative aspect ratios, that's fine with me. Just tell Thomas that I gave you permission if he says something about it. Here's a case where the weight of the R isn't exactly lined up with this line. But you still kind of get it that they line up. So let me go back one second. So one of the obvious ways that contrast is used that we're often not confident enough to do in our designs is that whatever the thing is about, I mean, this is a baby shower, is super big, and it literally takes up almost half of the invitation, and that's good. Like, you actually want that most of the time. It's nice, the contrast between these nice round shapes and then these the straight text. Not as big of a fan for that one either. Oh, it's okay. It's original. I like this. This tree is kind of unique. This is a really good one. I guess it's okay that they went to the left alignment here, although they could have kept it centered with the rest of this. But this is a great example of figure ground. They're using the gray background to show you the outline of a wedding dress. You don't actually need a lot of details. As a matter of fact, this bow alone was enough to sell the rest of this blob of a shape as a wedding dress. It's very obvious, and it's very elegant. All right, anyway, there's some commentary on these. You guys will be making your own. Come back to me. Okay. So on Friday, you guys will get into class. You'll have a quiz. I gave it to Thomas to give you guys as a handout. I'll try to confirm with him that he got that, because I'll be on the train. I won't be able to drop it into the shared folders. And then be patient with him doing the critique. I learned from my section 1 of last week about how to manage our time with that. and I'll talk to Thomas about this too, but I guess there isn't enough time because our classes are full to look at every project for everybody. And so what I want you to do is I want you to choose, or have Thomas choose at random which one we look at for your critique. And then we'll just go through each student. We'll get one of those things looked at. There's a trade-off. If you know, you're likely to learn more if you have us look at the thing you like the least. But then you also open yourself up to more criticism. And so just kind of keep that in mind if the choice is up to you. Again, I want to remind everybody, just because I'm letting you do revision over the weekend, you should have a pretty final thing together for critique. To your understanding of all the principles that are in play, you should have a pretty good looking design, and then take what little you can learn from critique and then add that stuff to it. You'll learn more that way. And I think it will make you a better designer. Okay, that's all I have. Again, email me at willranny@gmail.com if you have any questions about the class. Make sure that you go and see the student helpers to help you work through all the work. You have your reading assignments are in your syllabus. Those haven't changed. Please keep up, and I will be back on Monday. All right, bye everybody.